Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, where we celebrate individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Marvin Cash is our guest on the Outdoor Adventure Series today. Marvin is a storyteller and connector. He helps fellow anglers gain a deeper understanding of the sport of fly fishing and the people in it, and he is the host of the Articulate Fly podcast. Now, I'm trying to figure out which is his side hustle and which is his day job, because when he's not fishing, he is a practicing attorney, a businessman, and an entrepreneur. Marvin, it is a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and it's always fun to be on the other side of the mic and do a little bit less work.
I like that. I really haven't been on a lot of other peers' podcasts, and for some reason, I just don't want to hear my voice, but especially on the delivering end. And what's your perspective? Because you, as a fly fisherman, there's a lot of fly fishing radio shows, podcasts. What's it like to be a guest?
This is actually, it's kind of funny. This is my second appearance. No, that's not true. It's my third appearance, but it's my second and third. I had one last night. So I don't do a lot of them.
Okay.
Some of that is actually by design, not trying to hide myself, but just in the sense of, like, one of the great things about your podcast is you're really well prepared.
Yeah.
Right. So you ask for questions. And so you understand, like, and I think you and I have talked about this, about valuing people's time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to be kind of selective. And so if someone says, "Hey, let's go be on a podcast," and you say, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" And they're like, "Well, we'll just talk about whatever. We'll just hit record." I generally kind of shy away from those. So,
Yes. Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, as for our listeners, we're going to have about a 7 to 10 minute segment, which is going to include the video of Marvin and I. We were both joking that we have fantastic faces for radio, so we're going to have a wonderful video time, but then we'll have the rest of it is going to be a good old audio. And so I'm curious. Let's talk about your background briefly. Practicing an attorney, businessman, entrepreneur. It's kind of like the chicken in the egg. Which came first? Where had you always been outdoor enthusiast, fly fishing or angling of any sort? Did you grow up with that, and that was a part of your getaway from the business world, or did that come in later in life?
no, actually, well, kind of yes and no. So I
Okay.
started out, I had a grandfather who took me fishing when I was a kid and fished a fair amount, didn't really hunt as a kid. And then, what happens, right? You go to school, you get responsible, you don't do the things that you love. And so I didn't really fly fish as a kid, but probably, I guess, in my early 30s, when we started our family, I wanted to have something to be able to kind of compete with Y soccer, to spend time with my boys, and I was working too much. And that was kind of when I got into fly fishing, also started buying shotguns and shooting sporting clays and things like that. And so that was really me coming back to the sport, and I found it very healing, right? It was one of those things, like, the great thing that I like about fishing is it's a problem you can't always solve. And so it really soaks up a lot of that extra kind of mental and emotional energy. And so it really recharged me. And so I really kind of have gone kind of both feet into the deep end of the swimming pool on that stuff. And then from a professional perspective, had worked in large organizations. I think we mentioned before we started recording, one of your companies, Lee Hecht Harrison, actually helped me when I got blown up in the Great Recession in 2008. And so kind of working through that, I've been lucky to be a lawyer, to kind of work on the business side of what I've done as a lawyer. And I'm always kind of interested in things. And so I probably, I guess, late 2015 had a really serious automobile accident and said, you know what, time to stop waiting until you're retired to do these things. And so I kind of reorganized my life and started my own law firm so that I could have a lot more control over that part of it. And that was when, and I probably for 10 years before that wanted to do podcasting, started the podcast. And that's been, I guess, where podcast is in its fifth years. I probably left the last large law firm probably 6 years ago.
Okay. Wow. A statement you made probably about a minute or so ago, getting into fly fishing and a problem you can't always solve. For some reason, that just jumped out at me. Can we go back and kind of unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'm academically oriented, right? So
Okay.
really, really lucky. Went to Duke undergrad, majored in economics, was a bit of a math geek as well. Went to law school and did finance. And most problems, if you spend time on them and put some effort into it, you can kind of break them down and solve them. And that makes them uh, become less interesting over time, right? Because kind of like from a career fulfillment perspective, if you can always figure it out, do you really want to do that same problem for the next 40 years?
I
Right.
understand that mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's really, why fishing appeals to me. It's kind of why I have these kind of entrepreneurial things that I do because I like challenges and I like working on puzzles. And that's one of the reasons why my law firm is called the Gordian Knot. And that's really kind of what I'm selling to people. What people come to me for is for that really hard stuff. And that's what I enjoy doing. And I enjoy doing that with people in the industry too.
Okay. Okay. So, as far as fly fishing is concerned, and I realized this as I was reading the intro, I kind of gave it away about, or I guess the articulate fly kind of gives it away a little bit that that this is fly fishing, angling, and this sport has this mystique to it. Some people are big game hunters, big game fishermen. I don't know if Nitra Hamper, I mean, she goes out around the world and fishes major league fish. I mean, these are the ancient ones, the arapaima, the wolffish, humongous catfish. But then there's the fly fishing in some of the most beautiful rivers and waterways around the world and can do it everywhere. But there's a mystique about it. And I'm really curious, how does that differ in your mind, say, from going out in the lake and doing some bass fishing, or maybe up in the Northwest for a muskie and fish like that? I mean, what is it about fly fishing that is so unique? And it kind of, to me, it kind of tugs at your soul.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there certainly can be a romantic element to it. I mean, I think some of it is it doesn't always have to be like this. So, for example, it can be more active and more involved in the sense of like when I was a kid, I used to have a Zepco 33. I'd put a worm on a hook, I'd throw a bobber out, and I'd wait for the bobber to go down. Right. And so your day was basically spent watching the bobber. There's a lot more to gear fishing than that, but I don't really know because I'm lucky I fish for multiple species on the fly and it's all interesting. It's kind of weird. I mean, I love being outdoors and I'm not really a fish counter. And so for me, there's so many great things, whether it's getting up before the sun comes up and like being out on the water when the world wakes up. I mean, there are all these great things to it. And I think it would be wrong to say that only fly fishermen experience that because I think hunters and other anglers do as well. But yeah, I don't know that I can really kind of put my finger on it, but it's captured me and I keep sticking with it.